when you look at the world then in 1962, the rate of divorce was 2% nationwide, 2%. Now, a lot of people say, well, people were trapped in unhappy marriages and so on and so forth. Well, maybe, but this was a discipline, a Protestant discipline that was imposed on the country, which held us together, a gelatinous glue which held us together as a people. So to demoralize, you have to take away those tenets. You have to disestablish the moral fabric of that nation. And so two ways you can do that. One way is to demoralize how you marry, and the other is to demoralize how you bury. So this kind of demoralization began with Ernest, with Alfred Kinsey, who was just acting on his own perverted premises. And then this was then exacerbated by Hugh Hefner, who was a burned man whose wife had committed adultery. Therefore, he wanted to enshrine adultery as a matter of law in the country, and also an atheist Talmudist. And then this door is going to be opened further by atheist Talmudic women coming out of oppressive, synagogues, and they began to discuss feminism, that the man was evil, you should tear down your marriage, you should compete with your man in the public square, there's none of this business of the man, the bread earner, and the woman being the child of the family raiser, right? None of that. You need to go compete with your man. You need to tear him down. And so by the time you get to the 1970s, here you go. Here's a pack of Virginia Slims.
Right.
You can bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and be the woman and the man while you're raising 2.5 children as a single mom.
Yeah, I was so fortunate to have a mom that stayed home. So fortunate.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, and of course, people, they underestimate the idea of a homemaker, what a woman does as a homemaker. But a lot of women, a lot of intelligent and educated women make that election. They finish up their college years and say, you know what? I'm not going to do that career path. I instead am going to be a wife and a mother and a homemaker. Yeah. And the kind of work that's involved in homemaking can be absolutely brilliant. Some women are very, very gifted at it, and they know exactly what they're doing. And when you have a woman who is a gifted homemaker, she is a towering pillar in the community.
Yes.
I mean, it's just that simple, because guess what? Her kids have a home.
Yeah.
And the cops know that her kids have a home. Mm-hmm. And the cops know that if those kids get in trouble, mom's going to be waiting for them.
Yeah.
They know that. And, and the community knows that. And, and so you have this idea of what's their name's house.
Right.
Stuff goes on there that holds our community together, right? Because that family is held together, that it holds our community together. Well, that stuff had to be demoralized. It had to be desecrated. It had to be defiled. And so you see with the motion of JFK and having those notorious affairs with Marilyn Monroe, the celebrated pinup from the very Playboy magazine, once that occurred, this opened the door to permissible adultery. Oh, and the kind of rhetoric that was going around in the 60s was, oh, everybody does it.
Right.
Well, no, that's not true. Not everybody does it.
Right.
Not everybody did it. It was not true. But nonetheless, this was the kind of rhetoric. And then and so a counter revolution was launched. And by the way,
Dr. Pigeon got frozen.
Kind of doing the time. There we go. We're back.
There you are.
So the counter revolution that was launched in the United States, the hippie culture. Okay, this was a plan that had been orchestrated by the CIA by a guy named James Jesus Angleton. James Jesus Angleton was at all times an operative and a traitor to the United States, an operative for the state of Israel. He, working with another traitor to the United States, Lyndon Baines Johnson, worked tirelessly in the 1950s to make sure that Israel could become a nuclear power outside of the IAEA. To this day, Israel is the only rogue state in the world that is outside the regimen of the IAEA in being a nuclear power. They're a criminal nuclear power.
Right.
And it was James Jesus Angleton at the CIA working with Lyndon Baines Johnson that created this. And so the opponent that stood up against this was John F. Kennedy. who said, I'm not going for this. You're not going to have nuclear weapons, and you're not going to be outside the protocol of the IAEA. And because of that, he was shot.
Yeah.
Now, Trump released the JFK papers, and when he did, these pointed specifically to the Mossad in orchestrating the assassination of JFK. One of the pawns who worked on behalf of the Mossad in doing this was George H.W. Bush.
That's fascinating. That history with them being the sheriffs. Fascinating. We were so hoodwinked.
We were completely hoodwinked. Nobody had any idea this was going on, right?
No.
But H.W. Bush, George Scherf, was photographed standing right in front of the book depository in Daley Plaza at the time of the shooting.
Right.
He was retained by the police and interrogated for 4 hours that night. And as a result of his successful orchestration of this assassination, which the Bush family had been involved in since the mid-30s, his father was a known assassin in Hong Kong in the early 30s before he came to the United States. And so they were, and it is rumored that H.W. Bush may have been responsible for the death of Nikola Tesla.
Wow.
He was the last one to see Nikola Tesla. And of course, Nikola Tesla practically starved to death. You saw the pictures of him at the end of his life.
Yeah.
I think he was living on cat food, I think.
Yeah.
And,
he had brilliant solutions for energy. And I mean, just brilliant, let's keep that hidden. Don't let that be out of the bottle.
We can't put a meter up on your house if electricity is free.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so anyway, but he went in and rifled. He was the last one to see Tesla, and he rifled his papers, and those papers got sequestered and shipped off to Germany. And so anyway, H.W. Bush, for orchestrating the assassination of JFK, was moved to the head of the CIA in 1966 under Lyndon Baines Johnson. And Lyndon Baines Johnson, of course, would lead us into the Vietnam War, another huge, expensive, totally irrelevant war that didn't mean it. Do you really, I'm going to ask you a question, Shelley. Do you care if the Vietnamese are communist or not?
No, but you know what I care about is having to watch my cousin come home addicted to drugs and never be able to have a normal life because of what he saw. And that man was tortured until, about 6 years ago when he finally died.
The problem is, Shelley, when you're a human being, okay, whether it's me or you, okay, if somebody hands you an AR-15 and says, go out there, and you're saying, okay, it's going to be kill or be killed, and you get used to the idea that bullets are flying around you.
Yeah.
And then you look up and you see an 18-year-old kid with an AK-47 coming at you, and you got the drop on him.
Yeah.
And he looks at you and he knows that you have the drop on him. And all the fear that's in your heart about dying, you see in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you shoot and kill him.
Right.
That never goes away.
It doesn't.
It never goes away. And so these callous politicians. So I'm going to put ground troops on the ground.
Right.
Has it occurred to you what you're doing to each person that you're doing that to? Yeah. Think about the kind of psychological disorder you're putting in their heart and in their mind, and you're sending them to do this. It doesn't bother them at all.
No. And for what?
It doesn't. Vietnam was for what? Vietnam. Yeah. You know what Vietnam was about? Taking control of the heroin traffic.
Heroin.
So
just like Afghanistan and the poppy fields.
That's exactly right.
Same thing.
All about controlling heroin.
Yeah.
And so we would spend trillions of dollars doing this. And of course, LBJ bankrupted the United States. We went from a balanced budget during the time of JFK to a bankrupt country by the time of Richard Nixon because of what LBJ had done. Now, LBJ finally figured it out. It took him until 1968 until he figured it out. And when he did figure it out, he was ashamed of himself.